2 years since his last visit, and a few weeks after he gave the state's first-in-the-nation primary the cold shoulder, President Joe Biden met with supporters in New Hampshire this week. He got a warm welcome, even from some of the local politicians who criticized him over his push to downgrade New Hampshire's primary status. But will it be enough to earn Biden the state's delegates in November? Politico's Lisa Kashinsky joins me now to discuss. Hey, Lisa, so you were up there when President Biden rolled into New Hampshire. What's the right way to characterize his appearance there? Was it an apology? Was it a peace offering? Was it something else?
It was officially a follow-up to the State of the Union, a little bit of battleground state visits that he's been doing basically throughout the past week. That was what it was officially. Unofficially, it was a way to mend fences with Democrats who really stepped up for him in a state that he completely shunned in the primary process.
And who were also ticked off, right, that he tried
Absolutely.
to demote New Hampshire, give pride of place to South Carolina, and then didn't come to the state at all during the primary.
Didn't come at all, didn't set foot, no ads, no nothing. And his allies, no matter how upset that they were, and very publicly so, they had berated him publicly for trying to reorder the primary, they still stepped up and did a write-in campaign for him that was successful. And so this was his way of saying, I will prioritize New Hampshire in the general election.
We have a little bit of video that Adam Sexton, the reporter from WMUR, got in one of the two events, this private campaign event, in which Biden expresses some of the gratitude that you're talking about. Let's take a look.
Hey, folks, thanks an awful lot. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Look, it stunned me, the writing campaign you offered. No, it really did. I was very careful not to be here.
The laughter suggests maybe nervousness, but also a willingness to move on from this episode, at least to me. Is that the event where Biden suggested that New Hampshire might, in fact, be able to keep its delegates?
Yes, that is where he said that he expects. Now, he was very careful not to get ahead of the DNC's process, which I believe is taking this up next week, to actually discuss whether to count New Hampshire's delegates from what was an unsanctioned primary. But the president said that he expects that those delegates will be seated, this summer. He doesn't actually need them to become the party's nominee. He's already the presumptive nominee after the past batch of primaries. But it is, again, kind of that olive branch peace offering to make sure that this happens.
And I would think, tell me if I'm wrong here, that if the president says, I'm thinking that this scenario could play out, the DNC is probably going to follow his lead, right?
Probably going to follow his lead, especially because they followed his lead in changing the primary calendar in the first place. Plus, you had a very key ally of his, Jim Clyburn, the South Carolina representative, a Democrat, come out after that primary and say, find a way to seat the delegates.
I want to highlight the state of New Hampshire when it comes to the presidential race and talk about what the stakes are for Biden, because we're expecting this to be a very close election. New Hampshire right now, based on a Marist poll of registered voters that was conducted in January, looks to be relatively secure for Biden. He had 52% support compared to 45% for Donald Trump. But it's been close in the past. How important do you think this charm offensive / mending fences exercise is when it comes to Biden keeping this as a likely win for him?
It's very important. Even if he's ahead in polling, even if he won the state by 8 points in 2020 over Trump, he cannot afford to lose New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes this fall in what could be an incredibly close race, and that polls in other states and nationally show him not in as great of a position as he is in New Hampshire. While the state may be safer for him than other battleground states, he cannot afford to lose it.
And his opponent, former President Trump, got a boost when Chris Sununu, the outgoing GOP governor, who's been very critical of Trump, announced that he was going to endorse him, or announced that he was endorsing him, and would campaign with him. Were you surprised that Sununu changed his tune on Trump?
I am not, because it's not a total change of tune. Chris Sununu had been saying for months, and remember, he was the biggest backer that Nikki Haley had, really, of anyone who endorsed her, and particularly in New Hampshire. But even while he was campaigning for her, he would get asked on CNN, by any reporter, really, whether he would support the party's nominee, no matter who it was, and if it was Trump. And Sununu would say that he would. He would support the Republican nominee. Now, he wouldn't say Donald Trump's name, and he would try and say that Trump wouldn't be the nominee. But even, but Trump is now the presumptive nominee, so he is kind of following that pattern, and now he's just attached Donald Trump's name to it.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I was too focused on, he had a lot of memorable lines involving Trump, including at a Politico Governors Summit, a-holes come and go, but America is here to stay. But if you've said that you're going to support the nominee, I guess you support the nominee. Okay, before we wrap up, do you think that Trump is going to take up Sununu on his apparent willingness to campaign with him in New Hampshire? You think we'll see the two of them campaigning together?
That is a tough question because just as much as Chris Sununu has criticized Donald Trump has fired right back at Chris Sununu. Seeing the two of them together would really be something.
Yeah, that's an event that I'm kind of hoping materializes because it would be fascinating to watch because it would be so profoundly awkward. All right, Lisa Kashinsky, thanks for covering this stuff so that all the rest of us know what's going on up there. Appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.